visibility in road traffic for bikes, but also cycling for everyone. Now I would like to know how diversity and inclusion can be introduced into practice for all target groups. And I'm really happy to have a Q&A session with Sarah Karge, representative for traffic policy in the ADFC, and Anna Eberhardt, owner of the consultancy Traffic, Bike and Family. An applause. Nice that you are here, Sarah and Hanna, offering answers on the big topic of diversity and inclusion and how we can implement that into practice. I introduced the ADFC already before, most know it, but maybe Hanna, you can start. For those who don't know your association, what is your association? Bike and Family, Fahrrad&Familie e.V. The target of Fahrrad&Familie is to strengthen families so that they can ride a bike even with a very small baby. Many are insecure, they don't really know when to take their kid with their bike, and this is where we start. We inform families with a brochure, for example, and here it's described: trailer, cargo bike, child seat. These are the options, and we also offer services like test cycling and renting out of child seats, etc. And we also do some lobbying work. And after that, for personal interest, of course, um, at what age can you take a baby? There is no minimum age laid down by law as of when you can take a baby on the bike with you. It depends on the manufacturer. There are the baby seats in the cargo bike and for the trailer of your bike. Some say after 1 month, since as of when the neck muscles have been developed. Some say after 3 months. Others say only when they can sit safely, because we don't offer any support mechanism for babies. So it depends on the bike and the risk willingness, the risk appetite of parents. Let me ask, how diverse and inclusive is the cycling scene, and what target groups are neglected maybe too much? Sarah. Good question. I think it depends in what direction to look. Whether you are in a conurbation area, bigger cities, Frankfurt, I think here it's highly diverse. In the city, many different people riding bikes. But I think there is more potential to grow. For example, I would say we address already a diversity of age groups. We have been successfully doing that. But people with migration background, for example, are not seen that often on the bike. So that's a big target group that we could reach out to. Let us talk about this, how to infuse the other target groups. But Hanna, to you, how would you describe diversity and inclusivity in the cycling scene? It's not that bad looking at the gender shares. There are not that many differences in Germany as in other countries. From Ireland, I heard that girls don't dare going to school on their bike because they are mocked at. But still, I believe that there are groups now as before that don't ride a bike that much. We know from a study in Germany that people with little money available have no bikes or not bike that often, and so they don't go by bike that often. And then elderly people. Personal example, my mother-in-law used to ride a bike a lot, but now she has swindle, and she doesn't use the bike that much. Dizziness and vertigo stop her to use a bike, but you could use a tri-bike, and maybe it's not knowing about that option, or maybe she's shy and doesn't do that. Now, target groups that we miss out in cycling. Maybe we can concentrate first on children and youth. Also looking at different cultural backgrounds. Sarah mentioned it. People with migration background are not seen that often on bikes. How can we attract them to the bike? Well, with children and adolescents, here we have a lot of potential in different directions. We know it from Germany. Here the car is extremely important as a status symbol, but there are other groups of culture where the status symbol car is even stronger. Once you have afforded a car, you have done it, you have made it. And these people live in Germany, however, with a migrant background, and maybe that's their image they have. And maybe social media is one point, and I'm happy to hear. I don't use social media that much myself, but I've heard that our national soccer team was seen on a bike in Hanover, I think, or it was the Polish football team. Our national team should also go on bike, but not as a highlight. You just do that during the Euro Cup, but on the way to their training and in their everyday routines. Being a role model for kids, it's cool. It has to be mega practical or cool so that kids copy that. This is an important point in addition to being a role model. Accessibility. Accessibility is really important. We need to be careful that socially weaker families are not left behind. If I look at all the values that you see here, how much bikes cost nowadays, there should be always possibilities that the bike is affordable and a simple means of transport for families. And a third point may be, for me, these are the most important points. The possibility to make this experience every day. There are projects like those supported by the ADFC, the bike buses that show kids how they can use their bike from home to school. Think of this. Think of how many people are still afraid to mount a bike as they feel unsafe. I mean, there are potential parents. So when they were a kid, they were afraid, and as parents, they're also afraid. So it eternalizes. So we have to really interrupt that cycle, getting kids on the bikes, telling them it's fun, it's cool, and you are awake till you arrive at school. These are the components we should look at. Hanna, would you add anything here? I can absolutely agree. And with the role models, that's really super important. And I also believe that it's important to go via institutions like the kindergarten or the schools, where there are offers for kindergartens and schools, and nearly every kid is in the kindergarten, so you reach many people. A lot is happening nowadays, also in schools. You talked about the Bici Bus, the bike bus, but there are also play roads, making sure that no cars should drive in front of schools or kindergartens, but you can go there by bike or by scooter. So that's another incentive to use your bike to go to school. And it's nice to have the whole road for yourself. And this is where our campaigns start. It's a great campaign where kids have fun on the road and they can see how it is to go cycling on the whole road and use the whole space. And this fun factor is something that we should have in everyday life. That's what we see in the kiddie buses campaigns. How can we have more campaigns like that? Where would you wish more activism from different parties? Well, particularly I would wish that child mobility is taken seriously and cycling should be taken seriously. A woman should not be should be given odd looks if she is on a bike with her big belly. Yeah, you know that. Yeah, I experienced that. That's too much, That's to be taken seriously. That should be commonplace. And not, okay, it's the hipster parents or the eco parents that ride the bikes. It should become very normal. It should be accepted and appreciated. And it should also be accepted that this ideology of life is accepted. And projects should be supported and subsidized more that make that possible. If you just check, I mean, most of it is voluntary work, and also with the bike bus, it's a super action, but unfortunately, it can only take place once a week. So we can't have it every day. It's always special, and parents need to come together and organize it. The school must be willing. So a lot of private initiative is needed. And this is something that I would wish to have it more often, not always depending on individual initiative and voluntary people. I mean, this is our future. If the kids that go to school now or go to the kindergarten now, if they don't want to ride a bike later on, they don't do that either. And if we enthuse them now, that would be super. Let me add here, and for that we need to create the right infrastructure. And this is not taken seriously. To legally allow the ban of car traffic on the roads. Maybe the legislator should do something here. A school road, a kindergarten road without cars. Hopefully we'll reach that very soon. Tomorrow we'll have the 5th of July, then it will be easier for municipalities to do that. And when it comes to infrastructure, it's so important. It's about inclusion so that everyone can participate, and cities and municipalities are planned for everyone right from the beginning. If I have a pedestrian path or a bike path where a girl of 8 years feels happy, then the 80-year-old will feel happy as well. If the cycle path is wide enough, you not only have cyclists there, but also people with handicaps might feel happy, that might need a bigger size of a bike, or the wheelchair, etc. So including everyone, not only certain categories, planning the city for the kid but not for the disabled person. Let's stay with people with disabled or restricted mobility, elderly people or people in rural areas where we also have restricted mobility. How can we make sure that the infrastructure is developed for them? What measures are needed so that these people can also be integrated into active mobility? Riding bikes, particularly in the rural areas, on the countryside. And that's the holistic approach that is needed. There needs to be a true alternative to the car, to the private car. And that is not difficult, just linking up the bike with the public transport. Okay, I know how difficult it is to expand public transport. Often it's cost intensive, but it's not that difficult. What we have now should be linked with the bike, and people should then be given this alternative. I absolutely agree. I think on the countryside, it's really important to have the mobility mix, public transport, but also car sharing and other offers, or also retail in that municipality, so that I need not drive 30 kilometers to the next supermarket. The willingness is there, the wish is there. Also people on the countryside to go by bike more, but often it's the infrastructure that is lacking. I have to drive long distances, and on the regional road I have a possibility to speed up to 100 kilometers. So maybe we have to have a speed limit also on these roads. This is the end of our diversity talk. It went over so quickly, but you mentioned so many interesting points and offered inspiration and made us think. Finally, one question. If you had a free wish, what would you wish for more diversity and inclusion of a stakeholder, concretely, or different stakeholders? It's up to you. Sarah, I start with you. A wish. I believe, and we have seen in this discussion, that there are social players like the ADFC or other associations are needed. they work as voluntaries or as social groups. They are extremely important. We can maybe push the society a bit and encourage people to reflect on the question whether they go by car or by bikes. And we can also push politics, demand funds to be used also for that purpose, but there must be willingness. People need to want it. Otherwise, we cannot push society. They are there, they are willing to do something, but then on the other hand, we see that politics doesn't really want it. So there is need of support from politics also, so everyone can make progress. Hanna, at the end. I wish that everyone in traffic policy would not use a car for 2 weeks, try it out, and then they can do their political measures in traffic and transport. Thank you very much for the two.
Diversity and the power of bicycles for all, and I'm delighted to welcome two experts who are passionate about the cycling culture. Both work for Shift Active Media. Wayne Brown is a media expert with more than 25 years of experience, who is the CEO of Shift, and Rachael Burnside, she's the head of marketing and growth, also working for Shift Active Media, and is in addition to that the founder of Uplift, the women in cycling industry mentorship program. Please give them both a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, thanks for being here. We're here today to talk about unlocking the power of the bicycle for all, and with a particular emphasis on how grassroots movements are actually making cycling a more diverse and welcoming culture. My name, as you've heard now actually, is Wayne Brown. I'm the CEO of Shift, and this is my colleague, Rachael Burnside, who is head of marketing and growth at Shift. So I guess the first thing to probably answer is, what is Shift? Very briefly, it's a data-driven marketing agency dedicated to cycling and the great outdoors. We offer a range of services: upstream, consulting, research, strategy, and then activation in PR, media, creative, and social. We're very fortunate. We work with some of the world's greatest brands: Rafa, Zwift, Continental, Orbea, Wahoo, and we do that all around the world, even though we're based in Bath in the UK. So that's Shift. I guess that was us as an agency, but I guess why us too, as individuals? And I think we're fully aware, even though myself as a black man working in cycling, and Rachael as a woman, we know that that doesn't automatically qualify us to be experts on this subject. And so when we were given this opportunity, we kind of instantly thought about actually what we could do here is shine a light on some amazing organizations that we've been fortunate to come across in the course of our role. So that's what we're going to spend most of our time doing today. But before we get into that, I do just want to kind of share with you, I guess, some context. Now, the first thing to say is we've got a few data points here, but the reality is there's a really limited amount of data on the subjects that we're going to talk about at a global level. And I think that that speaks to the emphasis or the importance that is placed on it by, I guess, the cycling industry, or even, I guess, broader at a government level. So there isn't that much data. But what data there is, and some of it is collected by a really great organization that I'm sure you guys will be aware of, People for Bikes. They're the kind of providers of this first piece of data. And essentially, actually, interestingly, when we looked at this, we had to look at it twice to say, is this what we kind of experience in our lives? And actually, if you look at participation amongst all cyclists in the US, it's actually spread quite evenly. There's a slight emphasis on male cyclists, but it's kind of spread quite evenly. But then when you dip down into the data and go a little bit deeper, actually you can find that the actual number of cycling trips taken, men far outweigh women in the same data set, 67% to 24%. And interestingly, that plays out the same in the UK, where we've got 77 to 23%, and then also in Germany as well, although it's slightly more positive there, a bit more of an even balance. So when it comes to the amount of cycling done, it's clearly that men tend to do the majority of cycling versus women. And then looking, I guess, at ethnicity as another area, I think, again, referencing the same data set for people for bikes, we see that in terms of indexing against the general population, white cyclists over-index, and then black cyclists under-index. And actually, when you then look at core cyclists, and for that means people who are cycling more than 4 times a month, that disparity widens again with a kind of 63% under-index for core cyclists who recognize themselves as black. So that's just there's a lot more richness to that data, so I would urge you to go and look at that set. One of the things that struck me was actually then when you look at who over-indexes in this study, then it's people who are postgraduate and those earning more than 100,000 a year. So I think you can sort of deduce from that data there's not a particularly inclusive environment when it comes to cycling. And then perhaps even more starkly is when you look at the question of faith. And this data is from London, so sorry, it's quite specific, but only 1% of all London travel, only 1% of Muslims travel by bike in London, which is obviously a staggeringly small number. But then when you also look at how many of those are women, it's actually 86% of those journeys are made by men. So, you know, it's almost a kind of negligible number made by Muslim women in the UK, in London. And then finally, I think perhaps a topic that gets overlooked, it's something that I've only recently sort of come across in another role that I play, looking at disability. And actually, on the face of it, it looks quite positive because, you know, there's quite a lot of people who have a limited disability or even a really limiting disability actually doesn't lag that far behind as a percentage of the population. This is, again, UK data that are cycling or classify themselves as cycling at least once a month. But when you actually then think about the potentially transformative power on somebody who has mobility issues to tap into cycling, then actually there's a reason for that number to be equal or if not higher, because it can have such a transformatory effect on disabled people's lives. So that's definitely one that we would say is something that we'd like to see improve. So that's the data, and we're conscious that, you know, we could go into real depth. There's a lot of studies been done onto what are the barriers, what is causing that prevention, what are the issues at play, which are, some of them are quite deep-rooted and fundamental, but we don't have time to really get into that, and actually there are people who are probably better qualified to do that than us. So what we wanted to look at was those people, as we've said, who actually don't accept the status quo, who are prepared to pour lots of personal energy and effort and time into changing the cycling culture, and to do that in their own individual way, and in touching a number of important communities that were brought out in the data that we've got there. So to introduce them to you, we've got a video.
So now we're going to shine a little bit of light on the organizations that we showed you in that video there. So first one up is All Bodies on Bikes. So if you're aware of them or if you're not, but what All Bodies on Bikes stand for is sort of highlighting that all bodies are good bodies, all bikes are good bikes, and all rides should be celebrated. So this organization I spent quite a bit of time chatting to over the past couple of months, and how it came to be was that the founder had been really keen to take on cycling. She joined a couple of groups that she found in the US, and actually every time she just felt it wasn't really for her. She wasn't comfortable in Lycra. There was a large
percentage of the team were men, and actually she thought, this isn't for me, but I still really, really want to cycle, and there's got to be more plus-size women like me. So they went on to set up all bodies on bikes, and alongside having the community groups and the rides and stuff like that, their big thing that they did was really focus on body confidence. So with the funding that they got from Shimano, they did a lot of content, they put on a lot of webinars for the women that joined the groups to say, actually, you just need to be confident in your body, full stop, whether you're on the bike or whether you're not. If you're confident off bike, when you get on that bike, you'll know that you're powerful. And I think one of the things that I really loved from speaking to them was like, what they're saying is like, all bike rides should be celebrated, and pushing your bike up a hill is not a bad thing, but from the groups that they'd gone to, that was absolutely frowned upon, and everybody was talking about speed and KOM. So they've been fortunate enough to get funding from Shimano to allow them to sort of push that message out there and say, yes, even if you're plus size, it doesn't mean that you cannot ride a bike. Cycling's for everyone. And latterly, Feisty Media, who focus on highlighting women's sport, have started to sponsor their podcast. So again, just continuing to get that out there. So yeah, really great chatting to them and learning more about what they do.
I'm conscious that the timer is ticking down, so Wheels for Wellbeing. These are a disabled group. They focus on the transformative power that cycling can have amongst the disabled community. They really focus on 3 different areas. One, which is like supporting people with coaching in the local community. They aim to touch 1,000 cyclists and help them in London. 2, actually campaigning and lobbying for infrastructure changes and making sure disabled issues are right at or requirements are right at the heart of any lobbying that is done. And then thirdly, just to raise awareness. And I think what's powerful about these guys is that they say if we design around disabled needs, there's like, in terms of their cycling, then we will have cycling that is right for everybody. So almost like starting in that place will improve things for everyone. The second one, really changing things, is about faith. And these brothers on bikes started out really organically, just about 10 guys who were on a WhatsApp group, and they added a friend who added a friend who added another friend, and over time they've been able to grow into over 1,000 people that are part of this group. It's centered around their Muslim faith. And they have get-togethers, they have local chapters, they've got their own kit, and as you can see, they get together, they have a eat, they have a good time, and then they ride bikes, and then they also kind of respect each other's faith. And that has led to actually one of their group podium for the first time in Britain as an Asian cyclist. So actually now they've formed a race team as well. So a really positive impact there.
Yeah. And then in similar vein, we've got Cycle Sisters. Cycle Sisters, obviously, for cultural and religious reasons, cannot join a group like Bob. So they've gone on and they've created their own group that is enabling Muslim women to ride bikes. And you know, people might say, well, why didn't they just join a women's group? Well, actually, due to sort of their religion and their culture and the sort of big focus on modesty, actually, like wearing lycra and joining a group like that just wasn't something that they felt comfortable with. So they created Cycle Sisters, and we've been working alongside them and Rafa, one of our clients, over the past 2 years to work alongside Cycle Sisters to develop the Modest range, which launched a couple of weeks ago. There's 3 pieces. They were fundamental in making sure that range happened and what that product looked like, and now they're the face of the women's campaign, so it's not even a Modest campaign, it's just like, we're running a women's campaign and you guys will be front and center of this, demonstrating the new products to, again, allow cycling to be more accessible for women of faith. And then again, conscious of time, but just quickly on London Riders. So they are the first LGBTQ road cycling group, and their sort of point of difference was that they realized that they needed to create a closed environment for their members. So much of their life had been battling how they were feeling and being discriminated against, but they were keen to cycle but needed to do something where it was just them. So British Cycling got involved, provided funding, which allowed for the London Riders to create closed groups at key velodromes, invite people along where everybody was part of that community, so any stigma that they would have sort of had outside of even just cycling was removed, and that then allowed them to use that money to promote what they're doing even further, so that people in that community can feel that cycling can be for them. And then power in numbers, they have grown to be more confident to go out, to go on the road and get over some of the barriers that stop them even getting on a bike.
And then finally, Bahati Foundation, founded by a former, well, actually current competitive cyclist in the US. He's from Compton, LA, and I guess they're all about promoting it within that community, underprivileged inner city communities, and they do something that really inspires us, which is the great annual giveaway, where they actually, backed by brands, Zwift have been involved, Giant have been involved, they've given away hundreds of bikes in the community to show people that the power, or that actually engaging in cycling can have a positive effect on their lives. So, we've talked about 6 amazing groups that really inspire us. So what are we doing? And I guess that was a question that we asked ourselves after listening to Rachael, who said, just start on your own patch, do something that's close to you. And so as a result of that, Rachael was inspired to create Uplift, and I guess that's one of the things that we are doing.
Yeah, so for those of you that are not familiar, a year ago we created Uplift, so that's the Women in Cycling Industry mentorship program. It was born at EUROBIKE with some of the team from the Women in Cycling panel, who you're going to see next. But we realized that there was a gap between the up-and-coming talent within the cycling industry, being able to get access to women who'd already paved the way within the industry. And due to our connections and the brands that we worked with, we knew that we had a group of people who could definitely help that talent. So we went about creating the program. We are nearly a year old. We have had 20 mentors, 40 mentees come through the program. We've hosted 5 live events, which have had over 600 people join. A split of like 50-50 men and women, which is amazing. That's absolutely what we want. And there's been amazing conversations that we've had while we've been here. So we're hoping that the only way is going to be bigger and better for the program. So just finally, what can you do? Well, if you are passionate about something in particular and you really want to change the status quo, then do something that is within your power. But if you can't actually go on to create something yourself, like we've talked about 6 amazing organizations that are doing stuff, there's plenty more right there. Like if you can dedicate a little bit of your time, a bit of your skill set, then please, like we urge you to get in touch with these organizations and just help them raise their game so that it just becomes a more open conversation around cycling being for absolutely everybody.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Rachael. Thanks a lot, Wayne, for your great presentation. We will continue talking about diversity, and with this, we will talk about women in cycling. And who would be better to moderate this next session than the founding member of Women in Cycling and co-managing director of Velo Concept, who has recently actually been awarded with the Leadership Award by the Cycling Embassy of Denmark. I really have to drop that, dear Isabel. So please give a warm applause, Isabel Everlein.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So hello, I will not be by myself on stage. I invite my 2 great panelists, and one of them is Romy Nicolai. She's the bicycle mayor of Amsterdam, and she works as a project manager and starter of the Bike Kitchen at UvA. And Ash Lovell, she's the electrical bicycle director of People for Bikes from the USA. Welcome, warm applause for the 2 of them. And if you have been following the panels before, it was much upon individuals and the individual sphere, or how we can, make an impact ourselves. In this panel, we want to focus very much on the structural level and on the structural leverages that we have. And I just told these 2 ladies a story of this morning because it was the leaders' breakfast. And at the leaders' breakfast 5 years ago, there were 4 women in the room, and that led to the founding moment of Women in Cycling, because we said we have to change something in this industry. If out of 200 people, there are 4 women in the room. This year, it was 16 to 18 women in the room. So we made the number 4 times, but it was still, 16 women out of 120. Is that enough? So I'm asking you, maybe I'm starting with you, Romy, and ask you, what can we do to really make a structural impact to make not only our sector, but also our cycling society more diverse?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's actually, especially what I do as a bicycle mayor. I think the sort of bottom line is to connect local communities, because I really believe that if you encourage people from the individual level and you encourage the collaboration between the sectors, then you can actually approve something and create change. What I think is very valuable about bikes, that the bike is actually a symbol for change. You can actually see the bike as a sort of method, as a symbol how processes work. So if you connect people with bikes, then you can increase the connection between human and the environment all around us. So I think that we have to look more closely towards that individual aspect.
So the connection is also a very good point for Ash, because you have the privilege, I would say, that at People for Bikes you combine. So you have a great platform in the US. And would you say that connecting is already enough, or what do you think are your leverages for making the sector more diverse, or what measurements do you take in the US where we can also learn from?
Ooh, very good question. So I think connecting is the first step. The second step is allyship and mentorship.
Yeah.
So understanding that it's one thing to have women in the room, it's another thing to have women be championed by the men who are in leadership positions and give them the opportunities to be in the next room and to then speak in front of people and then to get those promotions and rise through the ranks of people that are leading the bicycle industry, bicycle advocacy, bicycle volunteerism. You need to have those doors opened for you if you are part of a group of people that is not represented currently. And so it's not just that you need a mentor, someone who can teach you what they did, because you may not be able to do exactly what they did. You have a different set of demographics, a different set of history. You need someone to champion you, to speak about you when you're not in the room and help you make that next step to be that person that can then open the door for others.
I will touch upon two things that you mentioned. The one is about, being championed and also the role of men. And I also know that you, at People for Bikes, you run a leadership conference. Maybe you can also say about how you increase diversity there, and also how, do you oblige to some rules, or, how do you really force yourself to, to work harder, maybe, as the same as we do?
Yes. So I have the honor and privilege of working for the trade association for the United States. We have 320 different members in the US. It's called People for Bikes. Our CEO is a female, and yes, she is amazing and opens many doors for many different people. And she had a similar experience when she started in the industry a while back of, 4 women seeing that they were only 4 and saying, how do we change this? And in the 15 years since she had that first experience, every time we have a conference, our major conference is called the Bicycle Leadership Conference. We have specific happy hours and specific bike rides just for women, and they are designed to be this networking opportunity. And at the last Bicycle Leadership Conference, we had 300 women in attendance. Wait, I'm sorry, I'll take that back. Of the 300 people, a third of them were women at that conference.
Wow. And
everyone came to the happy hour, and we had to actually, every time we host these happy hours, we have to turn the men away because they are so fun, and everyone gets very jealous that, that they're not included. So we have a separate happy hour for them now. But that has grown so dramatically. Sometimes it's just about making those personal connections and understanding that shared life experience is a great way to build trust and to bond, and you have to bring more women in.
So we learned that we have to take trust, and that we have to, have specific space, maybe also where we can meet, and that's probably the first step. And maybe, Romy, I want to ask you a little bit to shed light on your experience in Amsterdam, because you also work a lot with the NGO sector. Do you feel it's very diverse there? And do you feel that you also have the baseline to know where you want to set your targets and where you want to work to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Amsterdam is, of course, one of the most known bike cities, but also in leadership position. There, over the years, there is an increasing number of female role models.
You have a mayor, right?
I'm elected as a bicycle mayor.
But you also have the mayor of Amsterdam. Also a woman, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the mayor is a woman, the elder woman for the Department of Policy for Traffic is a woman. we recently also have a cycling professor who's a woman. The CEO of Bikes is a woman, and that is for me that helped through especially women from my age who feel a bit insecure about their position, that encouraged for myself to see that what's possible in the different lines within not only policy making but also NGOs all around me. And I think to touch upon your point, for me, the human infrastructure is a sort of the baseline for that. So that means that you connect different type of people and that you create a network. And that's exactly what Bikes did. Bikes, the NGO, organizes the bicycle mayorship, and that's a network of 144 bicycle mayors all around the world. So that collective can also inspire people on a local level to build relationships with each other. And within the Bicycle Mayor Network, almost 50% is also women. So it's very inspiring to be in that network.
It is, and probably maybe you can tell us a little bit more about, how people in this Bicycle Mayor Network get trained. How do they get access to information? How do they get access to maybe also become a leader, activate communities? Maybe you can say a little bit about the programs that you're also aware of so that others can maybe learn from the kind of support that the network offers.
Well, how you get trained as a bicycle mayor is just, it's a voluntarily position, so you, it depends on your individual interest actually.
Yeah.
But what's so interesting about that is that everyone within the Bicycle Mayor Network has a personal background that helps to increase their interest and helps to create that, to build up that network. So I've been asked to become the bicycle mayor because I started a bike kitchen, a do-it-yourself repair place at the university. And therefore I literally try to connect people and bikes and to encourage women that they are able to fix their own bike. And there you see a very interesting flip, because people walk in with a practical question about bike maintenance, but they leave the place with a feeling of encouragement, about pride and empowerment, and they feel autonomous about their own skills. And I think that's the most valuable thing that I've learned.
Yes. So it's very much about knowledge sharing, Ash, and I would like to ask you the question. So both of you said they have a very fortunate situation because there's a CEO in your company, there's a lot of female leaders around you. What if the situation is not already like this? What can we do to make sure that women get into these positions? Maybe you have an idea for that.
Sure. So one major thing that we've looked at in the bicycle industry is expanding outside of bicycles and into all of outdoor recreation. So there may not be a lot of women in cycling, but there are some women in climbing and some women in boating and some women in running. And so looking at how we can do mentorship across different sectors within the outdoor industry. There's actually a fantastic group called Camber Outdoors, and they have a woman-to-woman mentorship program where you can meet with someone who is also in the outdoor industry in general and share your experience and do professional development coaching together and really form those connections that you may not have otherwise. And then that network expands and expands and expands beyond just cycling. And we know that people go in and out of these different sectors across the industry relatively frequently.
Maybe, Romy, you can touch upon the aspect in regards to political decision-making and campaigning. So how do we get more voices heard in the campaigning, in the cycling campaigning that you do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, my suggestion is to encourage within policy making to acknowledge the fact of equality of women in cycling and in mobility, because as I speak from my perspective, that's a very underexposed topic now in Dutch policy making. So I can imagine that we can encourage that by working collectively about making this topic more on the agenda. So not only policy making, but also a collectivity of the sector. yeah, so collaboration, and I think that can be a big improvement.
And just because we touched upon this before, what kind of data would we need for that?
Yeah. What kind of data is about the behavior of women and the feelings and recognition of women in cycling? There's now a lot of research going on a national and also on an international scale, but it didn't yet reach the policy plans. So I think if there's more an acknowledgement of the role of women in cycling, not compared to men, but just the expression of women in cycling and equality, equal access to mobility, I think that can really help to stimulate the debate about that. And from debate we can learn.
And Ash, just a very short question. Do you know the percentage of women or diversity in the US cycling sector? Do you have the figures? Do you have the data? Because we are lacking that, and we want to work towards collecting that kind of data.
We are also lacking that data. It's fluid at the moment in terms of who's working in the sector, because cycling is very fluid. I will say that a lot more women have been hired recently because there's been a real push for it since 2020, when diversity, equity, and inclusion work became more at the forefront, but we don't have that data yet ourselves either.
Good. So that was a very quick run. I round this up with the last question, and I need a one-word answer. If you have the possibility to get 10 more people, 10 more women into the most influential round, a networking event, table event discussion, how do you manage to do that? One word. How do you get 10 more people in?
I would say learning.
Learning?
Yeah.
Teaching, learning?
Yeah, teaching and learning.
Yeah, teaching.
One word? That's so hard.
Tinia knows. She's already there to catch the time.
Yeah, I think perseverance.
Pardon?
Perseverance.
Perseverance. Very nice. Please, a warm round of applause for Romy and for Ash. And Tinia, just allow me 1 second to advertise for tomorrow's Women in Cycling Breakfast, starting 9 a.m. at Portal House. If you have an exhibited ticket, you can be there before 9, but please make sure to be there because it's a very interesting networking event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Isabel, for the moderation. So all women who haven't applied yet or thought about going to the Women in Cycling definitely should be there tomorrow. The breakfast will be great. So let's now talk about how to win new markets with a special focus on the African continent. And for this next session, I welcome Simone Kiel, Marketing Manager at Afri Cruzy, on stage. Applause, please.
Yeah, hello everyone, and welcome to a very interesting topic in terms of e-bike mobility on the